Good morning and good afternoon to those of you on the East Coast. I'm Peter Hales, Senior Marketing Specialist with Freedom Voice, and I'd like to thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Best Lead Tips from 3 Experts in the IT Sales Industry. And today those 3 experts joining us are Carrie Simpson, CEO and founder of Managed Sales Pros, CEO and Creative Director from Ulistic, Stuart Crawford, and Freedom Voice's own Vice President of Sales, Chris Sturbans. And now a couple of administrative things to go over before we begin. This webinar is being recorded and will be made available to you for further review. Also, everyone will be muted by default, so we have no background noise for today's session. If you have a question, you can type it into the questions panel on your GoToWebinar toolbar at any time, and we will try to get to it as soon as we can. That said, I think we're ready to get started. Chris, take it away.
Thanks, Pete. Welcome, everybody. We're very excited to have you to join us today, and we've got 2 pillars of the MSP community to join us today to talk about sales and marketing programs that you can take advantage of. I'd like to get it rolling here. We're going to have a very interactive session. We're going to read some questions that Carrie and Stuart are going to talk to, and please send in your questions as we go, and we can weave some of those into the mix. But let's get started with Carrie. A lot of people are struggling in the MSP side in terms of like when to hire salespeople and how to build sales teams. Typically, when they get started, it's just the owner doing all the selling. And so the first question I've got for you is, why do people outsource sales development?
There's a couple of reasons that people would choose to outsource their sales development, and thanks for inviting me on today to have a little chat about it. The first reason people should consider outsourcing is when they get to the point where they have to choose between revenue generating activities and prospecting. So if you look at opportunity cost, and the example I usually use is myself, so I bill out for consulting at about $300 an hour, and I can spend my hours prospecting, and my closing ratio is pretty high, so likely I could close a couple of deals if I spent 20 hours a week prospecting. Or I can bill my time out to clients at $300 an hour, and I can pay somebody else to do that prospecting. So even in this scenario where I am an expert, I have somebody that does my sales prospecting for me. So assuming that you could generate, let's call it 2 leads in 20 hours, whether I'm doing that prospecting or a third party is doing that prospecting, I'm still going to get the same 2 leads, and then I'm going to go in and close those leads. So I can take my billable time and apply that to the market and get paid for it, while I pay somebody significantly less than my hourly to do my prospecting for me. So opportunity cost is a big one there. You need to consider what could you be better spending your time doing other than talking to receptionists. So that's the first reason people usually think about outsourcing their prospecting. And the second one becomes a sheer volume play. The more calling you can do, the more new opportunities you can put into your pipeline, the faster you can grow your business.
That's awesome. So really, it's about leverage, right? They're getting more leads for their time and money spent, and it lets them really stay focused on other areas of the business while that work gets done by somebody else, right? So that's awesome. Looking at the financial aspect of it, you know, like what does it make sense to do this kind of in-house versus outsourcing? Because they could potentially, you know, try to hire somebody and try to do that inside the business versus sending it outsourcing.
So the real difference between the value of outsourcing versus in-house comes down to immediacy and consistency and volume. So there isn't really, like, if you think about cold calling, it isn't rocket science. It's really just the consistent application of a trainable process over and over again. So if you can identify an asset that you can acquire who's going to sit in your office and work for you 8 hours a day to do that cold calling, that's phenomenal. You should do that. But if you side-by-side compare where you would be if you chose an outsourcing company today versus hiring in-house today, I guarantee you that your ROI on outsourcing is going to be higher due to the same principle. I like to describe this as, it's like accrued interest. So my parents told me if I started putting $50 away every week, you know, when I was 20, by the time I was 40, I wouldn't have to save any more money. I would be ready to retire. I did not listen to my parents' advice on that one. I don't mind telling you that. But the difference is like accrued interest. So In order to have sales appointments, you need to have follow-ups, and in order to have follow-ups, you need to have net new dials. So the more you can put into the top of your funnel quickly, the more that is eventually going to come out the bottom. If you hired somebody today, you're probably 9 months away from a functioning member of your team, and that's assuming that they stay. And what happens quite often is people will hire someone, 3 months into that relationship somebody leaves or someone gets fired, and then you start all over again from scratch again. Whereas if you hired an outsourcing company, ours or any other company, they begin calling today, and we don't have that kind of unknown factor, right? Our callers are productive from day one, and they're able to put 100 dials a day into your pipeline every day for the next 9 months, whereas if you're going to do it in-house, you're going to have to wait 9 months to be able to really compete on the same level as a company that you would outsource to.
Right, so a big difference there is that the ramp-up time to productivity is a whole lot faster when you're basically hiring a professional to do the work for you.
Correct. So you've got all of those new appointments. That's going to lead to new business in your pipeline and, new deals closing in a couple of quarters versus waiting essentially 9 months just to begin the process. So think about it again as accrued interest. If you can get that curve growing faster, 12 to 18 months from now, it's all it shifts. It's less of an hourglass, or pardon me, it's less of a funnel and more of an hourglass. All the net new comes in the top. You squish it through the funnel until it starts becoming all follow-up activity down the bottom.
That's awesome. Hey, one of the comments that you made was really about the filling at the top of the funnel, which kind of leads me over into kind of Stuart's domain, which is on the online marketing, the website, SEO, SEM kind of stuff. Stuart, what new trends do MSPs need to focus on when they launch their next new website?
Well, Chris, and thanks again for having me on the call today. I really appreciate the opportunity to come and share some time with you guys. There's a lot. There's one thing for certain in the marketing space is the trends are always changing, and there's always new ways of doing things. So what we're starting to see a lot now, and kind of just circle back just a couple minutes. We're all about that top of the funnel. Like our job is to fill the top of the funnel full as possible, so people like Carrie and the sales teams can go and do their jobs more effectively. So when it comes to new attraction or new marketing efforts, we're starting to see managed service providers that are in that upper 10 to 50 percentile hitting it out of the park with things like SMS messaging. We're starting to roll out SMS messaging as a marketing strategy because we're trying to get above that inbox noise, because everybody's email is super saturated with this and that, and and they're filtering out stuff more diligently now than they ever did in the past. So what we have found is people are deleting emails, but they're reading every single text message that comes in. So if anybody's on the call and wants to experiment, I have a trial that when runs it. I'll mention that later. But you can see how this works, and it works very effectively. The next thing we're starting to see is a shift away from traditional pay-per-click. Pay-per-click was, it's ran its course. Google's admitted that their pay-per-click numbers are down 19% overall. That's why they shifted away from the presentation of their ads online these days to, now the new ones are like 4 on top, 3 on the bottom. The sidebar ones are pretty much gone. I don't think any geographies have the sidebar ads showing now. We're shifting more into remarketing focus. So targeting people who have been on your website in the past and or have some level of interest in what you have to do. So we use Google Remarketing for that. If you don't know what Google Remarketing is and how it works, it's very simple. If you go to, let's say you go to a website, pick any one of your favorite websites, let's say you're shopping for a BMW, and then all of a sudden as you cruise around the internet, you start seeing ads for BMW. Well, that's remarketing. These websites are aware of this service, and they display the ads for things that either sites that you've been on or interests that you have. So that's the Google remarketing. We're also seeing a mass move. I won't say too big of a mass move, but it's starting to move. There's flow going that way anyways, towards Facebook marketing. Now, I know a lot of MSPs are out there say, well, hey, no, I'm not going to go on Facebook. My target market doesn't go on Facebook to buy IT services. And yes, they're true, but that's the wrong attitude to have. That's the old transactional way that we did business. In today's world, it's all about building those relationships. So we use Facebook advertising because everyone, and if I was in a room of 500 people, I could say, who has a Facebook account here currently? And almost everybody will raise their hand. Well, why ignore that huge market? And Facebook remarketing works the same way as Google remarketing. I think it's a little bit better. It's got a little bit more granularity what you can do with, fine-tuning the audience. But why miss that opportunity? And Facebook ads are 10, 20, maybe 30 cents a click versus, paying Google pay-per-click, which could be $10 or $15 a click. So we start using Facebook ads as another way. So those are some of the trends that we're seeing, Chris, is, the shift towards non-email based marketing, aka the SMS world, and then also, the remarketing through Google remarketing and Facebook remarketing are some of the latest trends that we're seeing.
That's great. It's SMS messaging is definitely heating up. I've seen a ton of that now in the healthcare space. I'm not sure if you guys have experienced this also, but in the last, I would say, 1 to 2 years, my doctor, my dentist, and my chiropractor all confirm all their appointments and stuff via texting. And we're starting to see that in other businesses as well, but it's been heavily adopted in healthcare. And I think you're right. I think everybody reads every single text that they get. So what kind of messaging and things are you putting in the texts when you use that as a vehicle?
Well, here's, this is a good segue into, even just doing a little test right now. So if everybody who's on the call can take out their cell phone right now, their smartphone, and just text the word Ulistic, just ULISTIC, to this phone number, 205-900-7716. Now this is a test that we've set up, so it's not fine-tuned. But how this works is you text that message, Ulistic, to that number, and then it prompts you, hey, what's your first name? What's your company? What's your email address? And then thanking them, then we email them through, we hook into Infusionsoft. That's one thing I like about ours. It ties into our CRM application, which is Infusionsoft, which is a great, powerful tool. And now they're getting into our other streams of marketing. So we're taking the behavioral analytical information and putting it into a different funnel that we can also use for other traditional marketing like email or direct mail or telephone marketing, and tie that into what Carrie's doing. So a great application for this, Chris, is very, very simple. I just showed you one. You're on a webinar, you got 40 or some odd people on it, you want to get people to sign up for your mailing list, so hey, go to click text this here, we'll send you our slides. If you watch Fox News or CNN, you'll also see that all the politicians are doing it. Look at any one of Donald Trump's speeches. He has text the word Trump to this phone number. They're all doing it. So it is a great way for MSPs to get their message out. And I like the audience type of role. It's one way. You can put this onto other things like emails and stuff like that. I'm trying to actually figure out a way we can actually launch it from a web button on a website. That would be really cool if we can figure that out. That's on my radar to figure out. But this is just another way to get people to opt in to your marketing. With the keyword being opt in there.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's great. Thanks for sharing that. The other two trends that you mentioned are both kind of interesting to me. Here at Freedom Voice, we have started to experiment on Facebook as well. And there was a lot of skepticism about that initially, but the cost per lead has been significantly lower, and the conversion rates are quite good. Are you seeing that as well?
We're definitely seeing that. Now, the difference between, and this is where most, I'll just say small business, but IT companies as well stumble on this, is, again, they're attacking this in that transactional mindset. They're looking and say, I want that lead who's ready for me just to show up with a contract that they can sign and we start servicing right away. Facebook and all marketing is really not geared towards that. My job as a marketer is for somebody to raise their hand, even if it's all the way up or somewhat raised, and say, hey, I'm over here and I'm interested. And when we get that level of interest, then we can stick Carrie's team on them to do more of the nurturing of that opportunity, or an internal sales team to do that nurturing. My job is to get them to raise their hand a little bit. So in the social media advertising space, what tactics can we deploy that's not necessarily a transactional type of business model, but really starts on that brand recognition, that brand management, that relationship side of things. So some of the things that we're seeing a lot of MSPs do now is offering up a free report or an ebook on something that matters to a business owner or a user of IT at a business. So an example that we're using right now is just on riding this ransomware wave. How do you protect your business from becoming another victim of ransomware? Secrets are revealed in this ebook, and just putting that on as a Facebook ad. We're not trying to sell them anything. All we're trying to do is get them to raise their hand, so that then we can nurture that relationship over time, so that when they are ready to make a change in their IT service provider, the IT company has top of mind awareness with that prospect.
That's great. Yeah, the thing that's interesting about Facebook is it's top of funnel, right? You're trying to engage brand new prospects early in the sales cycle. These aren't necessarily going to be people waving their credit cards around, but just get them into the fold, offer some quality content, and then you get a chance to work them over time. One of the kind of anecdotal things that I've noticed is that a lot of MSPs are missing out on it. They don't even have a presence on Facebook today. I've noticed, and even within our own channel of about 500 partners, maybe between a third and a half actually have good-looking Facebook sites, if you will, and a bunch of the other ones are not even on Facebook, so they're missing out on that opportunity altogether.
Well, it is, Chris. It definitely is that. It is a huge missed opportunity because, like I said, 500. What's the number of Facebook? 550 million users. Why are you not there where your target market or your people that you know are on, and you can communicate with them? Sometimes in a non-business relationship, find out, hey, I know you like the Hawks. I'm a Maple Leaf fan, so you and I have, friendly debate on hockey. Doesn't have nothing to do with business relationship, but when you have somebody who needs marketing, who do you think of? You think of me, and I think of the same way when somebody needs a phone system. That's how business works.
Exactly. Good social interaction. The third trend that you mentioned, it was interesting to me. I think we've all experienced it from the user side, which is this Google remarketing. How exactly does that work? Is that another paid service that needs to be managed through Google, or how exactly does that work?
Yeah, it's a paid service, so you'd run it through AdWords like you normally would any regular pay-per-click campaign. But how remarketing works is when you set up remarketing, it gives you like a 1 pixel by 1 pixel image that we put them into the footer of our website. So it tracks that pixel being presented. And I'm not a really technology professional that deep into it. So all I know is that the presence of this pixel has a time expiry on it. We set them for 180 days. So when other websites are AdSense aware or advertising aware, and it knows that you've been on freedomvoice.com, it knows to present a freedomvoice.com ad on that page. So that's how it follows. I like it because it's re-engaging. Let's say I was on Freedom Voice's website, Chris, and I'm looking for a phone system, and life happens. Something gets in the way. I don't complete that in transaction. But as I surf around the internet a few days later, I see Freedom Voice ads appear. It reminds me that I need to go back and finish that. So that's the whole goal of remarketing, is to follow those visitors around, so you again continue to have that top of mind awareness as they conduct their normal everyday reading of the Wall Street Journal, their local newspaper, or blogs that they like, or other websites that they go to, and start seeing those ads popping up. And the nice thing about them too, you can also make them geography, limit them to a certain geography. So if you are, working in a 25-mile radius of Oakland, California, well, somebody in Los Angeles is not going to see your ad, unless you set it up for them to see it, and it keeps your budget up. But the budget's down. But the cost per click on those things are no dirt cheap. Like they're a fraction of the cost of, let's say, a competitive keyword on Google is for regular PPC.
Got it. That's really interesting. Just a reminder to the audience, please type in any questions that you have about any of the topics that we're covering, and again, we'll start to tackle some of those as we go. So now we've got all these advanced, interesting techniques. We're doing SMS messaging. We're taking advantage of Google Remarketing. We're starting to advertise and also have a presence within Facebook, and all these great top-of-funnel things are identifying new prospects for us that could in turn then be fed into the sales engine. So I'm going to flip this back over to Carrie now and say, your experience, what types and sizes of companies are the best ones to focus on when you do telemarketing?
Well, for our purposes, we try to aim between the 20 and 50 user space. We find that those are the ones that turn over in the least complex way. So anything under 20, especially if you're going to outsource your sales prospecting, it's going to be a very long time before you see any ROI selling 10-seat opportunities. And the 10-seat opportunities, while sometimes they can close really quickly and become fantastic clients, quite often they just become a lot of headache for something that goes nowhere. At 10 seats, unless they're a very technology strategic or very technology dependent type of organization, they're not going to be able to see the value in making the hop from, we bring somebody in once in a while and we spend a couple $100 here and there on IT support, to we're going to spend $100 to $150 a user every month. Quite often they're not even at the point yet where they're past a peer-to-peer network. So it can be a long exercise in banging your head against the wall. And again, that's, there's exceptions to every rule, but for our purposes, I like, the 20 to 50 seat space, because you're still engaged normally with a business owner who can make a faster decision. They may or may not be engaged with someone who's already selling the managed services, so that's almost the promised land if you can be patient. So if you think about the difference between selling to a company who's already recognized the value of managed services and recognized it so much so that they've already made the investment in purchasing it, with the challenge being now that they're not getting their needs met. That's the promised land, a company that's about a year away from the expiry date of a contract with a company that's already providing managed services and just isn't doing a great job of it. So a lot of the telemarketing sales game right now is wait out. There isn't a lot of a land grab in managed services any longer. Everybody's having that need met in some way, whether it's perceived competition or actual competition. They are engaged trying to solve that problem. Anything past the 50-seat space for telemarketing, you have to really be playing the long game. So you're going to make a big time investment in, first of all, mapping an organization and figuring out who the champions and decision makers are going to be. So you're going to require a whole lot more upfront work to get into those accounts. And quite often they are going to have an in-house person that you're going to have to collaborate and partner with. So if you want to go pure play managed, that space is going to be a harder space to engage in. You're probably going to have to support something in-house at that point. It's going to take longer to close. It's going to take a whole lot more salesmanship at that point. So for a less operationally mature sales force, that's going to be a much harder, longer term engagement. You're just not going to be able to walk in the door and sign a contract. So 20 to 50, technology dependent, technology strategic, trying to immediately eliminate anybody who might have 50 employees and 5 computers. So transportation, for example. Like there's a company that might look like a good fit from the outside just based on number of employees, but walking in there you'll find out that unless you want to do some kind of weird device and software management in addition to managed services, it's probably not going to be a good investment of your time.
That's a great observation. It sounds like the classic Goldilocks scenario, right? You've got the too small and the too big, so that sweet spot really is the balance between a sales cycle or a time to close that is short enough to be good for us, but these deals are big enough to make it worth spending that effort to go get that transaction done. So that's super helpful. I also like the thought you threw out that this is the least complex path that you could pick in terms of how you could drive that cycle. You're dealing with the owner, decision maker. It's not a big committee in the big enterprise. So that's super helpful. So as you pursue these kinds of companies in that sweet spot of 20 to 50, what are the position titles that you normally try to engage on?
It really depends. I mean, for us, we're going to try to go to controller or business owner immediately. And if we get pushback from either of those spaces, we may try to go into an account using a different route. So there isn't anybody that doesn't benefit in an organization when their IT is working properly. So if you consider, first of all, who is the person that takes the most flack when things aren't working? Whose job is disrupted most often? That's probably the person who's the first point of contact. So is that the office manager or is that the receptionist in the company? There's your first champion right there. If it's their job to field those complaints and relay those complaints somewhere, so if they're not under a managed contract where somebody can just pick up the phone and call the IT department, they're going to be funneling those IT requests to somebody. That's going to be your first point of contact. They're not going to be a decision maker. They can't sign a check, but they can very much get the ear of the person who can do that and say, hey, look, this is what my life looks like right now. This is how often this is happening. Here's how unresponsive the company that we're working with now is. Here's this company coming in, and they're telling me this. We can eliminate this much overhead. We can save time here. We're going to improve operations here. It's really worth taking a look at this company. Like, that's your first point of penetration in an organization. If you can recruit the person whose job it is to complain, that's going to be a high percentage shot of success. Are you selling something that can make the marketing department's life easier? There is no reason you can't go in and sell something to the marketing department, whether that's Infusionsoft, like Stuart's talking about right now, or selling into the sales department, a CRM solution. Like, what else can you support that allows you to get the ear of people who will then champion you throughout the organization for the deal that you really want? So when I suggest that to people, occasionally they'll say like, oh, Carrie, we're not going to sell $40 apps into a marketing department. That's a waste of our time. Except for the fact that once you're doing business with a company, you can begin to work your way through that company, and there's absolutely no reason why the CEO of a company that you're already doing business with wouldn't take your phone call. So you're laying the foundation for long-term sales success. You can't really look at managed services sales as quick wins. You start laying the foundation today for a deal that you're going to close in 6 months or in 12 months. Sometimes opportunities will drop out of the sky, and we love it when that happens, but it's usually months, sometimes years, sometimes 20, 50 interactions with a company before you win that managed services deal. So can you talk to somebody in the human resources department? They always pick up their phone. What kinds of things do you have on your line card that would be interesting to the HR department, to the sales department, to the marketing department? And if you're talking to the sales department, how are you beginning to build your referral network with those salespeople? Best case scenario is you create a powerful team of people who are taking your message to market for you. There's only one of you, but if you're interacting with 3 businesses, 5 businesses, 10 businesses, all of whom are keeping their ears out for interesting opportunities for you, now you've got this powerful sales engine that all you have to do is turn on. And Stuart, I know that you built your IT company doing that. Like, that's one of the reasons.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I did. Yeah.
So you should be talking to everybody in an an organization when you're trying to sell an IT support contract. It's not all about getting to the final decision maker. It's really about mapping an organization, working your way through it, creating powerful relationships that will then champion you into that deal. If you're in this for the quick hit, you're probably in the wrong business.
I think you really put your finger on it.
What Carrie's saying?
Yeah, go for it.
Sorry, I mean, Carrie just lit my fuse here, and she's got me ignited now because she said something that's very, very valuable, and I don't know if everybody got it. She mentioned that your way in sometimes is through the influencer channel, so the accounts payable clerk, the office administrator. When I was working in the oil and gas industry, sometimes my best ways in were selling Surfer, which was a $200 mapping software, to a geologist. Got me in the door. I see this so many times where IT service companies only want to talk to the CEO or the CFO, and I always say good luck getting to that person, because they are the hardest person in the organization to get to. Yeah, they may have the ultimate decision-making ability, but good luck getting to them. And this comes back to what we were talking with social media, and I always see it in email marketing too. When we build an email marketing list, we're putting everyone we can possibly think of in an organization, from the accounts receivable, accounts payable, the receptionist, whatever you want. We're putting all those people onto our email marketing list because they have the power internally to introduce things to higher ups. They have a higher chance of getting to that ultimate decision maker than you do. And this also rolls into the social media side. Don't discount the power of a receptionist or the power of an accounts payable person or some other rank and file position at a company, because as Carrie mentioned, they do have the power to move you up the chain very, very quickly. And and you should always focus your marketing efforts on pleasing the rank and file equally as much as going after the C-suite. But all of us are something O's in our companies. We all have gatekeepers, and their job is to stop salespeople from getting through to us. So the office manager probably doesn't have or the HR manager probably doesn't have a gatekeeper, and that's the best person. Sometimes that's the best way to get into a company.
That's a great point. I mean, what you're really trying to do as a point of entry is look for the pain, right? Who's being negatively affected by the stuff that you can address, and they do become your champion. And they tend to spill everything too once you get to the right person. So that's great. So I was curious, kind of the best practices question that kind of comes along with this that just came in is, how many calls do you find that you have to make on average to finally get that first appointment?
We run at a ratio of anywhere from 200 to 1 to 300 to 1 for an appointment, and it used to be a whole lot easier. And again, that will vary by your point of entry and your verticals and your geographic location. So there are some, I mean, if you were a vertical or niche specific managed service provider and you're calling nothing but law firms, your hit ratio might be a little bit higher. If your messaging is on target, like, it might be easier to get past the original gatekeeper in those cases. But if you're calling a wide variety of companies, they're going to have different kinds of setups, and the evolution of the IVR system hasn't been kind to telemarketers.
That's true. We have to take some of the blame of being a phone company here. So another related question is cold calling for managed services different than cold calling for other products or services?
Well, yes and no. So cold calling is really cold calling, and when people say like, well, what makes for a success? Well, actually cold calling is what makes cold calling successful. If you can create a process that works, perfect it and repeat it and do it consistently, you can succeed in cold calling in any vertical. Cold calling into managed services is a little bit different because you're selling an idea, right? You're not calling and saying, hey, do you need a copier? So this is kind of a longer, I think, explanation than I have time for today, but if you think about, like, the sweet spot for cold calling is always going to be in a place where everybody kind of recognizes what you're selling, so everyone gets the market. So if you think about anything that's commoditized now, that is a great outbound cold call. And there's a difference between, say, lead generation and cold calling. So cold calling in my mind is, do you need a photocopier? Yes. Can I come in and sell you one? Yes. It's a one-call activity. Whereas selling for managed services becomes a multi-touch outbound program where you're not going to go in and try and sell them one particular thing. You're selling them on the idea of better productivity, of what life looks like when everything just works. You're selling them insurance more than you're selling them anything else. So it's different in that you can touch on different things. Like if you're going to buy a photocopier, and I keep picking on the photocopiers, but you either have one or you don't, and you need one or you don't, and you need a new one or you don't. That's it. That's the extent of the conversation. Nobody buys a new photocopier when they just purchased one. So it's yes or no, I need it, I don't need it. But for managed services, you can almost spin it 100 different ways. And if you're asking the right questions and identifying the right problems, managed services is always going to be the answer to the problem. You just have to guide the conversation in a way where it doesn't get shut down immediately. So you don't really want to go in to look for managed services opportunities representing a single product or service as an expert in only that single product or service. So I never recommend leading with security or leading with backup. You want to go in asking them what kind of problems do they need to solve, and when they identify the problem or they identify something that they're interested in, then you can laser focus on that particular thing. But I mean, surprise, the answer to the question is always going to be managed services, but you're not going to have the conversation about that until you sit down in front of them. So you kind of open it up, you let them tell you organically what they're struggling with as a company. You suggest a few ways that you might be able to relieve that pain, and then you go in and sell them a managed service contract. Like that's the difference between selling managed services and something else.
That's great. No, and I think I like your your thought there. No matter what the question is, the answer is you need IT managed services, which is exactly right. So we got a couple questions and comments that have come in. A number of people have tested Stuart's Ulistic texting test, and they think it's really cool. So hey, 2 thumbs up for that. We have one guy who's sympathetic. He just wants to let you know that he feels badly that you're a Maple Leafs fan, but we'll let that one go. So I couldn't help you. I'd let that one slide in there. So Stuart, we've got a question that came in. We talked about Google remarketing. We talked about Facebook marketing. The question here is, what about LinkedIn? What do you think about doing advertising on the LinkedIn site?
Very good question, Chris. And my answer to LinkedIn advertising is don't do it. And here's why. LinkedIn advertising, it's obscure. It's hard to see. It's not one of those ones that's kind of it hasn't matured enough to the same levels as the other ones. But saying that, LinkedIn is the managed service provider's best tool when it comes to business social media. Because what I like about LinkedIn, for those people that may not want to do, and I don't know why they would want to not do managed sales pros, but if they want to try it themselves, LinkedIn's a great way to research and find who in an organization that they should be calling or reaching out to. That's why I like LinkedIn. It's a great prospecting tool. It's also a great community tool that you can get involved and position yourself as a thought leader by joining groups and getting actively involved in conversations. And with LinkedIn's purchase of Pulse, now you can actually publish your blog posts on LinkedIn. And this is why I highly recommend to people that they connect with everybody inside of an organization, because as soon as I post a Pulse post, it shows up on a flag up in their notifications on LinkedIn that Stuart Crawford just published a new post, potentially getting more eyeballs on it. So I wouldn't recommend LinkedIn advertising, not today. It may change in the future, but definitely definitely LinkedIn should be one of the crucial activities when it comes to your social media marketing activities. It's very, very powerful.
I got to chime in on that one. I don't have any experience on the advertising side, so I was curious to hear what you had to say about that. But LinkedIn is a phenomenal tool. I've been a huge fan and have been using it for many, many years. It is the best way, I think, to do research, not only on prospects, but anytime you're trying to hire. It's a great way to get blind references on candidates. And personal perspective, I'd never hire anybody into my organization without getting at least a couple blind references that you can find through LinkedIn. Everyone can find 3 references that will sing their praises, but talk to the people they didn't list, and you'll tend to get a more realistic view of their performance there. So in the groups is another great comment. If you can post comment or chime in on discussion threads, you start to build some credibility in those groups, and that's another way to get more top of funnel prospects into your pipeline there.
I want to talk a little bit about
absolutely.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
So let's talk about research a little bit. One thing I'd really like to discourage people from doing is spending extraordinary amounts of time on LinkedIn researching people that may never take their phone calls. right? So if I allowed every person in my organization to research before they dialed, and we've got 40 callers here, we've done the math on this, if I allow them to do even 10 minutes of research before every dial, I'm going to lose a full 8 hours a week to research for every caller that I have. So in the amount of time that it takes you to ask a couple of questions to a gatekeeper, you can quickly identify whether or not you ever want to pursue that lead again. So for example, if I call into a company and I speak with a receptionist, I can immediately qualify that lead. I don't have to speak to a decision maker to find out if I want to pursue an opportunity. Right? How many computers have you got there? Oh, we've got 4 computers. Okay, great. You know what? Our services are best suited for companies who have a minimum of 20. Thanks so much for your time. Have a great day. So in 2 minutes, I found out I don't want to pursue that lead. There's no way that LinkedIn is going to tell me how many desktops they have there, and it's not going to tell me who's going to make the ultimate buying decision. So if I say, for example, want to target 100 lawyers in my community or 100 law firms in my community, and I then go to LinkedIn and spend 50 hours researching those 100 law firms, I could have called all of those law firms and identified which of them were good fits in a third of the time that it took me to browse around on LinkedIn. And for business owners especially, I want you to think about where your time is best spent. And you can work without working all day long. If you don't want to do something, you're going to find a way to procrastinate around it. So if outbound cold calling isn't your favorite way to spend your time, you're easily going to be able to convince yourself that you're working while you're browsing those LinkedIn profiles. I'm going to get around to calling. I just got to do this thing first. I got to learn more about them. I got to find out who they do business with. I need to do this. I need to do that. And before you know it, you've lost an entire quarter of new business opportunities because you spent so much time researching that you didn't do any calling.
And Carrie's right, Chris. I mean, she bang on there. I'll kind of just expand upon what I was thinking. One of the things I work with my managed service clients on is top prospect marketing. These are the ones that get a little bit more care and attention. So when you're qualifying somebody for a top prospect marketing plan, you take what Carrie's talking about, doing the mass, calling with very little research and, just doing that qualification on the phone quickly, combine it with doing some research, and then it comes into what I call my top prospect marketing. So you know who the right person is. By the calling, you know that they are well suited for your services, and you blend that together, and then we go forward. So that was brilliant what Carrie said by just expanding on that, because she's 100% right there.
I completely agree. Yeah, and it's the other thing that you pointed out, just in passing, but is I've found to be absolutely critical is basically you're gathering profile information about these prospects for future use potentially, and at every company that I've worked for in the tech sector, you've identified that sweet spot perfect profile prospect, and there's maybe 4 or 5 basic questions that if you know the answers to those questions, this is a high-value prospect, they're worth additional energy, or if the answer to any of those 5 is completely outside of your window, then you can disqualify them and not burn energy chasing a bad prospect. So this is something that you should be capturing in whatever CRM package that you use. So we use Salesforce internally. There's a lot of different good CRM packages, and they're mostly customizable, and you should think about what is the perfect prospect for me. And Carrie talked about the 20 to 50 users, so that's a great example of profile data that you'd want to capture on every call, right? And if it's a vertical market that you're finding you're having more success in, that's another thing that you can capture. So figure out what that perfect profile is, make sure that you've got fields to capture that data in your CRM, and make sure you capture that data when you talk to these prospects, and get on the phone, don't overthink it. I think Carrie made a great point there, because not everybody, but I think most people fall into that trap. So just get on the phone, have live conversations.
Especially as business owners, you're coming from a very different place, right? Like, it's not like the difference between a business owner doing outbound prospecting and a sales rep doing outbound prospecting is that a business owner is approaching it from a very different place. It's not a supplicant, please sir, may I have some of your time place. It's we are peers. We are both trying to solve complex business problems. I have a way that I think can help you, but I also get to commiserate and collaborate a little bit with you, right? Like, a sales rep has never stayed up late wondering if they're going to make payroll next month, Or they've never had some of the experiences that people who've built these small and primarily small businesses, right? So we're not talking about 1,000-seat enterprise level companies. We're talking about small 20, 50 user family-owned businesses. You know, they experience the same struggles and challenges that you did starting your business. You can connect with them in a very real way. And there's no reason why you won't go have a beer with the CEO of a company in your city, right? Like CEO to CEO, you can prospect in a very deep, meaningful way.
Absolutely. Hey, I got a question that just came in. Carrie, this one's for you. So it's really kind of a distinction between this kind of top of funnel, early in the sales cycle prospecting thing versus your actual customer base. And the question is, what are the tips about marketing and selling services like, or additional services like cloud-based phones to your existing base of customers?
So we don't really get into cross-sell, upsell too much today. Like we currently don't call anybody that's currently a client of one of our clients. So I don't know that I'm the best resource to answer that question. I think it's important that you increase your base.
Yeah, so Stuart, maybe you could chip in terms of, because it's asking about both sales and marketing. Like how do you basically sell additional stuff to your install base of current customers? What could you do on the marketing side?
Well, you know, that's an often missed opportunity for a lot of managed service providers because they're too interested in going after that new kill. They want to go and hunt for that new client, new prospect, and they forget what's in front of them. And I always say, you know, how much money are you leaving on the table by not going and marketing to your existing client base? So, you know, Carrie and I have thrown all kinds of different ideas around, and I believe fully that the MSP of tomorrow is going to be more of a business consultant versus an IT consultant. So, you know, looking at things like, and again, I'll just toot our partnership with Infusionsoft a little bit because we use them and we love them. You know, why can you not become a master of Infusionsoft as an MSP for your CRM and not go and then go and talk to your clients about that, because they all probably have the same pains you do. But even something even closer, do all your clients have a voice over IP phone system? I'm assuming, Chris, the majority of the people on the phone here today are all Freedom Voice partners or an interest in working with Freedom Voice. Do every single one of your clients have a Freedom Voice solution deployed in their environment? The answer is probably no. So when you go and talk to these people, talk to them about, you know, replacing their aging phone system or talking about the benefits of, you know, a Freedom Voice solution over what they have. And it's a great opportunity. And why is it so much? And why is it a great opportunity? Because they already trust you. They know, like, trust, and believe. And if you're doing your job right, believe you. So the know, like, trust, believe in is the 4 areas that we focus on. Once you establish that believe-in factor, your clients are like putty in your hands. They will do almost anything that you tell them to do. And if you say, hey, we got to replace this phone system, let's put some budget next year aside because the old Nortel system is not working anymore, you need this new phone system, they will more than likely go in and take your recommendation. So it is huge. It's a big opportunity that most managed service companies miss. And we have a template that we have in Ulistic. We call it the Client Solution Index or Client Solution Roadmap. And really, it's just a very simple spreadsheet. On the vertical axis, you list all your clients. On the horizontal axis, you list all your solutions, and you go, got it, need it, got it, need it, need it. And this is where all the need-its are. It's the people you go and target market to.
Excellent. Another question that came in is it important to do some sort of integration with your PSA platform, whether you have ConnectWise or AutoTask as an MSP? Is it important to have your platforms integrate into the PSA?
Can I answer that one first?
Oh yes.
Sure.
Well, here's my recommendation, and I'm very vocal on this. You know, this is the question we field all the time. I think integration is important, but it's not as important as what managed service providers think it should be. Most of us suffer from a lead generation problem, not an integration with ConnectWise or AutoTask problem. That's why I recommend things like Infusionsoft or Salesforce or Marketo or HubSpot, because those applications are built for marketing and sales, where ConnectWise and AutoTask were built for ticket management and other things, and then bolted on these other things afterwards. And I don't know how, I can't speak on them today, but my past experience is they were very weak on the marketing and sales side, where all these other services are very strong on the marketing and sales side. So there are two-way integrations with other products you can get to link the two together, but I believe that managed service providers today have a lead generation problem, not an integration with their PSA problem. And I always steer people away from worrying about the integration at this point and focus more on, let's get 2 or 3 leads an hour first before we have to worry about integrating with ConnectWise or AutoTask.
Perfect. Carrie, do you want to chip in on that one?
I know, Stuart went first because he knows I'm going to disagree with him. Actually, from a CRM perspective, like neither of the big 2 PSAs on the market were built to be CRMs.
Right.
However, your company is making an awfully large investment in both of those tools, or any of those tools, any of the PSA tools on the market. You're leveraging yourselves heavily in the use of those systems, and I personally believe before you go out and buy yourself Salesforce, or before you go out and buy, and not necessarily, I mean, Infusionsoft is a different animal, but from a CRM perspective, and again, we are a calling company, so we don't use Infusionsoft. We don't do any email marketing. That is not our area of expertise. We do a lot of calling. And I think that in order for you to have an appropriate snapshot of the life cycle of your customers, you need to start working with them. Like call one, they should be in your PSA. And, you know, leaving your client roster, that should be noted in your PSA as well. You should have a good snapshot of the entire life cycle of a client from your PSA information. So there is no reason, I mean, it's clunky. It can be clunky. But most companies, especially smaller companies, once you get into the, if you've got a 5-person sales department, ignore everything I'm saying. But if it's just you as a business owner doing your own sales prospecting, you don't need any fancy CRM tools. You need to be leveraging the tool that you're already spending money on and keeping your information in one spot so it's easier for you to find and track and measure.
I still disagree with Carrie, by the way.
I'm somewhat in the middle on this one. I think you both have some good valid points there, but a good point counterpoint there. I've got another question that just came in for Stuart here. Email marketing, is it dead? Is the time for email marketing past? You touched on it a little bit earlier, but go ahead and take that one on again.
No, it's not. Email marketing is very much alive, just like cold calling is very much alive if you do it correctly. We have clients that are using our Infusionsoft campaigns that we set up for them who are getting, you know, 2 or 3 leads a week just from response to email. The trick here with email marketing is not to make it look like it's a spray and pray type of approach. You know the fancy HTMLs that lack personalization. When we do an email marketing campaign for a client now, like I said, we use Infusionsoft, and if anybody wants the demo of it, just let me know, and I'll be more than happy to set you up with the right folks. But we use Infusionsoft to, and again, that text messaging, by the way, is integrated into our Infusionsoft as well. But the messaging is very personalized. It says, "Dear Chris, how are things going over at Freedom Voice? You know, been a while since we chatted last. I found this article online. I thought you'd be. Here's a snapshot of it. You know, if you want to chat, give me a call." That's the type of email marketing that still works today. The big billboard HTML banner, newsletter stuff, that is, if you're going to look at a dying breed of email marketing, that's where it's dying. But the one-on-one personalized, and you can still send an email out to 10,000 people and make it look personal using these tools that we talked about. And get that out there. People will respond to those personal type of emails where it's like appears to be a one-on-one versus just an HTML template that you import that that obvious is going out to mass distribution. And I think that's where most businesses and in general, IT companies, roofing companies, whatever, struggle with is they lack the personality built into their email marketing programs.
Perfect. So we're coming up on time here, but I've got a couple questions and they're kind of related. The first one goes to Stu, and then I'm going to flip back over to Carrie. So what you touched on this a little bit. Like, what are the things that you can do with a marketing automation platform like an Infusionsoft that you cannot do with the PSA?
Yeah, Infusionsoft was built with small business marketing in mind. And if you want to check it out, just go to ulistic.com/isoft, and that'll get you to a link in that shows some videos, ulistic.com/isoft. And then, so what we do with it, so we create lead magnets on every website that we do. So let's say we have a page on VoIP. We're promoting the Freedom Voice relationship. We have a page on VoIP. So the lead magnet on that page may be, secrets revealed on how to maximize or minimize expenses with VoIP or something like that. I'm just ad hocing here. And the form on that page leads into a campaign inside of Infusionsoft that's nothing but VoIP. And then we drip market to these folks messages about VoIP over and over again. And then inside each one of those emails that go out, there could be another link, we call it a tripwire, that if somebody clicks on that link, it may revert them into another campaign so they can get more information about something else. So it allows you to customize your campaigns either from your website or from even what I showed you with the text messaging here. And I think Peter messaged me and wanted the number repeated, and I'll do that before we hang up here. But that kind of stuff all get fed into campaigns that can be based on user behavioral analysis and say, hey, Chris here at Freedom Voice has an interest in Office 365. Let's give him some more Office 365 information, and then we can score these leads based on the level of interest. So let's say somebody opens up 3 emails a month. Well, guess what, folks? They raised their hand a little bit. They said, hey, over here, I'm interested. You can now assign that opportunity over to a sales professional or put that in your sales funnel of managed sales pros that they can go and execute on. I know we're short on time, Chris, so that's kind of the very high-level Cliff Notes version of what something like Infusionsoft does.
No, I think that's a very helpful distinction. The related question goes over to Carrie, which is what tools or software do you need to use to build a cold calling program?
Well, short answer is if it's just you don't need any tools to build a cold calling program, right? If you're only going to make 5 to 10 calls a day or even 20 calls a day, odds are you're going to be able to manage that in either your PSA or a notebook. There's no need to get overwhelmed with the idea of, oh my God, before I can start cold calling, I have to have the perfect software and I have to have it set up perfectly. You don't. You just need to start picking up the phone and taking notes, and you could use Outlook for that. There's really no fancy software system required until you get to the point where you're doing 8 hours of outbound calling all day, every day, in which case that's where things are going to start to get complicated. If you're going to bring in a team to start cold calling, you're going to want to look at using a CRM system. And I don't love the one that we use. I don't love any of the ones on the market, honestly. They're all, if you're looking at the cloud-based solutions out there, from the most commonly used one right down to the bottom tier, you're looking at making a major outlay to use probably 10% of that system. So most companies that buy, for example, Salesforce, are not going to use 100% of the options that Salesforce is going to offer them. So we use Zoho, which is a less expensive cloud-based CRM system. Zoho is actually offered to the market free for up to 10 users at this time, fully functional and useful piece of software. It doesn't integrate well with anything. So if you're going to look at bringing a CRM system in and bolting it to your PSA system, you're going to have struggles with something like Zoho. I mean, you have to choose the one that makes the most sense for how you like to work personally. So for me, if I look back on my sales career, I started my career using a system called Maximizer, and I still, to this day, want every CRM system I use to look exactly like Maximizer. So,
right.
No matter how robust or interesting the tool set, when I log into my Zoho system and it isn't Maximizer, I'm disappointed. Although, I mean, obviously, the way that we prospect has changed over the years. We're old school cold calling. We use our CRM a very specific way. If you're going to integrate multiple campaigns, cold calling, email, direct mail, other items, you're going to want to prospect differently from me. So don't take my advice on what CRM system you should go out and evaluate. You really need to go and look at all of them and evaluate how does this fit how I do business.
That's a great point. You did date yourself a little bit with the maximizer, but I started with ACT, so I'm right there with you. There with you. All right. So
if an organizer doesn't look like Lotus Organizer, I get very upset. So there you go. I date myself too.
There you go. All right. So we're pretty much out of time. I just wanted to put a brief plug in for both Carrie and Stuart. I heavily encourage all of you that are on this webinar to go check out their websites and contact these guys. We love having them on our webinars because we know that every one of our partners that is leveraging their services is growing faster than they were before and is making more money. So the more of our partners that use these services, the more success we see with those partners. So I can't promote how much goodness they can provide for you any more than I have right here. So I'd like to thank both of you for joining us today. I really enjoyed our chat, and I hope everyone got great nuggets of insight out of that.
Thanks so much, Chris.
Well, I appreciate it, Chris.
All right, you guys take care. Everybody have a great day.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.